Good day, ladies and gentlemen. In Zimbabwe, where being a journalist often feels like walking a tightrope above a pit of crocodiles, each one named police brutality, censorship, or unlawful detention, one man stood up and said the unthinkable. Keep walking. His name is Dhara Blessed Mhlanga. And this past weekend, he stepped onto the podium at the belated World Press Freedom Day commemorations hosted by the Harare branch of the Media Institute of Southern Africa, MISA, Zimbabwe. Delivering a speech that didn't just stir the audience, it rattled the very foundations of fear. In a nation where journalists are hunted for headlines, and where speaking truth to power is practically an Olympic sport with no medals but plenty of scars, Dhara's voice rang out with the force of lived experience and quiet defiance. Addressing a crowd of fellow journalists, students, and press freedom advocates, Dhara did not sugarcoat the reality. He spoke with the weight of someone who has faced the sharp end of the regime's paranoia. Someone who knows what it means to do the job and then pay for it with handcuffs and humiliation. His arrest, which sent shockwaves through the journalism community, had all the hallmarks of Zimbabwe's modern repression playbook: vague accusations, rough arrests, prolonged detention without conviction, and a system designed to wear you down, not win any moral arguments. Yet here he was, standing tall, speaking with purpose, his voice firm and unwavering. "My arrest must not scare you from doing your job," he said, looking directly at the young budding journalists in the room. "It must show you the importance of it." The statement didn't come from theory. It came from the trauma of lived reality. Dhara had been arrested during a time when the state was tightening its grip on dissent, when journalists who dared to expose corruption or challenge state narratives were seen not as watchdogs of democracy but as enemies of the state. He was taken by police, thrown into the legal meat grinder, and subjected to what can only be described as an orchestrated attempt to silence him. There were no formal charges that could stand up in a real court, just vague innuendos, procedural gymnastics, and prolonged detainment meant to break his spirit. But it didn't work. What was meant to terrify him only fortified his resolve. And it's that resolve he came to share. As he stood there addressing a room full of eager, if slightly anxious, future journalists, Dhara wasn't just recounting his ordeal. He was issuing a challenge to every young person in that room to be braver than the systems that threaten them, to report harder, to speak louder, to keep documenting, questioning, uncovering, even when the reward is not applause but a court summons. "They thought arresting me would end the story," he said in his speech, "but all it did was prove that we are telling the right stories." And for those who were not there to witness it in person, this was not a moment that vanished into thin air. The entire speech was captured on video, preserved like a historical artifact for the next generation of Zimbabwean journalists who will someday find themselves at a similar crossroads. Whether you are reporting from a chaotic polling station, or live streaming from a court in Bindura, or standing outside a hospital demanding answers about missing medicines, this video is a reminder that someone walked that path before you and refused to be silenced.
So it is important as we deal with these issues, my colleagues, that we understand this. But my last message to young journalists, because I have been arrested, because I went to prison, you should never be threatened from doing the work that you are supposed to do. They will only care about you if you are doing the right thing. They will arrest you, but they will not kill you. They can break bones, not spirits. I am here standing and I want to thank Mr. Zimbabwe. I will thank all of you for the support that you gave me. I'm stronger and I'm more determined to do my work, and I'll keep doing it. Thank you so much.
You can see it in his eyes. The tired determination of a man who has been tested and didn't flinch. This isn't a TED talk. It's a war cry. A cry to every young journalist still wondering whether journalism is worth in a country like Zimbabwe. Spoiler alert, it is. His words were not poetic pleasantries. They were truth grenades tossed into the polite silence of Zimbabwe's muted press environment. He dared to speak about fear, not as something to run from, but as something to master. He reminded his audience that every journalist arrested, harassed, or abducted is another reason to keep writing. Because that is precisely what oppressive systems fear, a generation that won't be silenced. And while some would have used this podium to call for reforms or intellectual aid, Dhara used it to light a fire in the hearts of those who still believe that journalism is the last line of defense between democracy and dictatorship. He reminded them that the role of the journalist is not to make peace with power, but to hold it accountable. Not to flatter ministers, but to question them. Not to echo press statements, but to challenge the press conferences themselves. What comes into mind? Oh yeah, ZBC and the Herald. As the audience sat in rapt silence, Dhara's words cut through the air like a blade. It was more than just a speech. It was a passing of the baton, a warning, and a blessing, all wrapped into one. He was saying, yes, they will come for you, but come anyway. So if you are still thinking about journalism, if you are still wondering whether this path is worth it, watch that video, listen to every word, then pick up your pen or your mic or your camera and do the job anyway, because Dhara already paid the price for your permission. The next chapter of Zimbabwe's story is waiting. It just needs someone brave enough to write it. Zimwaves TV has been following Dhara's story. We advocated for his release, and we still advocate for these baseless charges to be dropped. He is not free until these charges are gone. We need him to fly to the diaspora to catch up with those that left Zimbabwe because of the economic challenges, because of the political persecutions, and because it had become a war zone instead of home. If you are against the arrest of journalists who report on the truth and hold power to account, subscribe to Zimwaves TV for more unfiltered stories, bold voices, and frontline journalism. Because here, we don't just report the news, we confront it.
Iwe munangagwa sunungura Dhara, hana mhoswa sunungura Dhara, kutoranya sunungura Dhara, aizi mhoswa sunungura Dhara, nyika ino yaenda kumawe, iri kutongwa nenhungu dzine utsinye, nyundira mutsime dunuromwa kupiko, zvigananda ndizvo zvichere tatata. Mapurisa vematare hana mosva zvigananda, nyika ino yaenda kumawe, iri kutongwa nenhungu dzine utsinye, sunungura itara, vasungwa mabanditi chengetedza itara, nyika ino yaenda kumawerere, iri kutongwa nenhumbu dzine utsinye, nyundira mutsime dunuroma kupiko, zvigananda ndizvo zvijeretatata, vatori venyau shambadzirai shoko, kuti Dhara mutori wenyauche, vemasaisai shambadzirai Dhara, hana mosva Dhara mutori wenyau, nyika ino yaenda kumawerere, iri kutongwa nenhumbu dzine utsinye, nyundira mutsime dunuroma kupiko, zvigananda ndizvo zvijeretatata, vatori venyau shambadzirai shoko, kuti Dhara mutori wenyauche, vemasaisai shambadzirai Dhara, hana mosva Dhara mutori wenyau, nyika ino yaenda kumawerere, iri kutongwa nenhumbu dzine utsinye, nyundira mutsime dunuromwa kupiko, zvigananda ndizvo zvigeretatata, vekumacheri sunungura Dhara, kurimandi sunungura Dhara, vasungwa Dhara, mapanditi chengetedza Dhara, nyika ino yaenda kumawerere, iri kutongwa nenhumbu dzine utsinye, nyundira mutsime dunuromwa kupiko, zvigananda ndizvo zvigeretatata, vekumacheri sunungura Dhara, kurimandi sunungura Dhara, vasungwa Dhara, mapanditi chengetedza Dhara, nyika ino